Party of the century, 2 centuries after the French Revolution, marking the day they stormed the Bastille and declared the rights of man. A festival of liberty and equality and fraternity. All happening here in a gala, glowing, glittering Paris. This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting tonight from Paris, our opening location in front of the Paris City Hall. Good evening. The grand finale, the climax of France's party for the Bastille Day bicentennial, symbolic of revolutionary events now underway throughout Europe. In Eastern Europe, the striving for freedom and free enterprise. In Western Europe, the transition to a single economic power without borders and barriers among member states. All this the backdrop for the economic summit of major capitalist nations of the world being held here in Paris. On opening day, a tiff about the summit agenda. President Bush wants to focus on Eastern Europe. Mitterrand of France wants to focus on China and the plight of have-not nations in the rest of the world, some of whose leaders are here but not invited to the summit. We'll have full coverage about all of that, but first, the celebration. The day Paris threw a party and everybody came. The streets are not all that were being cleaned this morning after the night before. Boots and tires got an extra rub for the Bastille Day parade. And an extra one because the president has guests. Guests like Margaret Thatcher, who was critical of France's revolution this week, but who probably admires Francois Mitterrand's guns and missiles. Some guests who might this week be asking Mitterrand where they could get some for themselves. Others who might just have wondered how such sophistication would figure in future arms talks. And while the leaders of rich nations and poor watched in comfort, in the elegant streets around the Champs-Élysées, there was little room for pedestrians. Only pressed uniforms and posing, and enough firepower to destroy a small city. No chocolate soldiers here. If you weren't in uniform, it was a day for standing on tiptoe. It was also a good day to be very small or very agile. These cost $5 and don't work so well. So some just gave up and sat back to listen to the sounds of French pride. But for the most part, this day has had us all sitting on the edges of our seats, waiting for the grand parade on the Champs-Élysées. Thousands of dancers and musicians from all over the world performing what they call a fantasy opera. Lots of fantasy, not much opera. And of all the U.S. entertainment available, the French chose the Florida A&M Band to strut its stuff on the Champs-Élysées. And then the parade careened into pure fantasy. Somewhere out there in the depths of this colorful bicentennial night is a kaleidoscope of artificial snow, Russian dancers and accordion players, a polar bear, zebras, and all manner of things never seen before in the streets of this town. With this party mood in Paris so widespread tonight, the fact is there's also serious business going on here. The economic summit of the world's 7 major free trade countries. CBS News Tokyo broadcasting polls taken recently in 3 of the dominant countries, the United States, Japan, and West Germany, highlight some of the major issues. We polled 1,000 or more people in each country. In all 3, marked pessimism about the overall economic future. In all 3, the majority see the United States in economic decline as a world power. President Bush and all the summiteers are mindful of how they come across on the world stage and at home. White House correspondent Leslie Stahl reports there are splits at the summit over President Bush's agenda and strategy.
The opening act of the economic summit, a picture. The leaders of the world's richest countries pose in front of the new glass pyramid at the Louvre. But behind the smiles, a controversy. President Bush opposes French President Mitterrand's proposal for a conference on helping poor third world countries. Mr. Bush wants to concentrate instead on aid for Poland and Hungary.
The only agenda item we talked on, I started filling your collaborators in on the trip I took to Eastern Europe.
The president argues that with Poland and Hungary moving away from communism, it's crucial that the West keep the focus there.
These are opportunities that ought not to be let go by and really call for concerted action, coordinated action on the part of the major countries of the world.
Why not concerted action for all poor countries?
Each country is different, each has different economic conditions, each has different levels of debt, and we feel that's the way to go at it. They don't get a better solution to the problem by bunching up a whole region and tackling it that way.
Mitterrand's critics say he's promoting the Poor Country Initiative to blunt charges that he's betrayed the principles of the French Revolution by staging a lavish rich man celebration with royal trappings. Rejecting the conference could be embarrassing for Mr. Bush, since Mitterrand invited leaders from 26 poor countries to the celebration. At today's parade, he seated the American president next to the president of Bangladesh. One poor country the U.S. is helping is Mexico. Mr. Bush told President Salinas today the U.S. could offer a $1 to $2 billion loan to aid in an effort to restructure Mexico's foreign debt. President Bush may find himself fighting yet another move tomorrow to produce a joint statement condemning the crackdown in China with language much stronger than he wants. Dan?
Thanks, Leslie. Joining us here for this Bastille Celebration Economic Summit weekend is our chief European correspondent, Tom Fenton. Tom, where does this fit in with other summits?
This is likely to be one of the smoothest summits in years. Relations between the Europeans and the United States are better than they've been for a long time. There's a consensus on most of the major issues. People are comparing this to what's going on in the communist world right now, where you have turmoil and an economic crisis. By comparison, the 7 rich industrial nations are saying we've been handling the economy of the West pretty well.
You're talking about the economy. George Bush only wants this summit to be about one thing, and that's aid to Eastern Europe. He's absolutely determined. He may come across as a little naive to the Europeans on this, as though he's inventing the wheel, because they've been aware and have been helping the Eastern Europeans for quite some time. But he is nevertheless determined to become the leader in this. He feels we are at that exquisite crossroads in history where the Eastern European countries are beginning to break away from the Soviet bloc. It's the first fruit of his strategic review that ate up the first 100 days of his administration, and he's determined.
But, Tom, with the Europeans, there is some criticism that President Bush hasn't spoken out enough on China, and some criticism that he wasn't outspoken enough in Poland.
There certainly is the feeling that perhaps he missed the boat in Poland, that he was too low-key. There's also the feeling that maybe he could have spent a bit more money. One of the French newspapers talked about a handful of dollars for Poland. 115 million just doesn't sound like a lot.
You know, you could say that this summit is going to underscore for the world how the United States can't spend money on anything. You know, they're not going to bring out a lot of money for the environmental problem, Eastern Europe. This may be the moment when the world comes to terms with the fact that we don't have it anymore.
How about the environmental statement that they're coming out with, Tom?
That's one thing that the Europeans would like to see a very strong stand on, particularly the Germans, because it's a vote-getter. They want to see a strong statement on the ozone layer, on carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide emissions, and on the rainforests. And they think that while the economies of the West are doing well, it's time to spend a bit of money on it.
I have to laugh. The briefers, the American briefers, are telling me, don't pay any attention to the environment. Eastern Europe, one thing.
What happened to George Bush, environmental president?
Not at this summit, Dan, sorry.
Leslie, Tom, thanks. I'll be back in a moment with more of today's news, and a little later, Bernard Goldberg will be around to tell us what's hip, what's hype, and what's hoopla for Bastille Day. As we continue our special coverage of the President's trip and the new face of Europe.
So, are you doing all right?
Yeah, I'm doing fine.
Dad was afraid I'd find a starving artist up here.
Oh, Dad was worried.
Okay, I admit, I was a bit worried when my little sister took off on her own.
I'm not so little anymore.
Here, let me get that.
No way, it's mine.
American Express, huh? I'm gonna stop worrying about you.
Making you feel like a million. To become a member, look for this display and take one.
I used to take ibuprofen, Ibuprofen irritated my stomach sometimes. When I went to my doctor told me that Tylenol would not cause the stomach irritation that ibuprofen can. He recommended that I start using Tylenol, and I went to Tylenol. I got very good results. I got relief from my headache.
Debbie Eckert trusts Tylenol. Its pain reliever is in a class by itself.
I'm not going to experiment with any other types of pain relief medications.
My wife, she brings me this cereal that tastes magnificent, and it is made with oats. She's crazy for me. Darling, what is this?
Nothing, honey.
I love it when she talks to me that way.
New Nut and Honey Crunch Oats. You'll love the oats.
Oops. A little imperfection, but a perfect place for Old English scratch cover. It's a simple way to cover a scratch, touch up the marks of time, or a flaw on the floor. Old English scratch cover, a more caring approach to wood care.
As the fireworks continue, we've moved over to the base of the Eiffel Tower for the day's other news. The mystery deepened today in the case of the wandering plane. There were puzzling elements from the earliest moments yesterday when authorities reported a single-engine plane flying down the east coast of the U.S. with the figures slumped at the controls. Almost 6 hours later, the plane crashed off the Bahamas when it ran out of fuel. Then the story moved toward today's startling discovery, which Juan Vasquez tells us about.
When rescuers pulled Washington attorney Thomas Root out of the ocean alive, it seemed his story would have a happy ending after all. But today it went from the incredible to the bizarre. An examination of Root after he arrived in Hollywood, Florida, revealed he'd been shot.
It was a contact wound. That is, that the gun would have been held against his body, approximately 2 inches above the belly button.
Root left Washington, D.C. from this private terminal and shortly thereafter reported he was ill. He was apparently unconscious as the wandering airplane was tracked on a voyage of nearly 1,000 miles by U.S. military aircraft. 8 hours after takeoff, it went down near the Bahamas. Not only did Root survive the impact, he managed to swim to a life raft even though he'd been shot. That raises questions. How was he shot and when?
All the aircraft, the military aircraft that did intercept and observe the cockpit and the cabin area saw no one else present.
Today, reports surfaced that the 36-year-old attorney was facing financial and professional problems, his legal practice under scrutiny. But family members denied that Root was despondent. From his hospital bed, he told his brother-in-law that he did have a gun on the airplane.
We can only surmise that, logically, that it probably happened on impact.
He denies it was self-inflicted, however.
Yes.
And he denies anyone else.
Categorically.
Everyone agrees that Root's adventure is a miraculous tale of survival. Now it's a mystery story as well, and federal investigators say they hope to question him tomorrow. Juan Vasquez, CBS News, Miami.
Seattle police said today it may take at least a month to analyze 40 boxes of evidence to see if a jailed law student has any connection to the so-called Green River murders. But he is being called, quote, a viable suspect after an investigation that's taken 7 years. Correspondent John Blackstone has a report.
The bodies of 41 murdered women found mostly in the Seattle area since 1982 are all believed to be victims of the Green River Killer. But never has enough evidence been found to lead to the murderer. Police have identified their latest possible suspect through what even they admit may be just bizarre coincidences. William Stevens, a 38-year-old law student, is already in jail in Seattle serving time for burglary. In court documents, Stevens is described as a viable suspect, partly because of his collection of police equipment.
Had his own unmarked police car equipped with lights in the grill, a siren, police radio, nightsticks, handcuffs, guns, badges, police uniforms.
Investigators have long believed the Green River Killer may have picked up victims posing as a policeman. The court documents show other possible links. Stevens once lived near the Seattle airport, an area known for prostitutes, where the Green River Killer picked up many of his victims. The affidavits reveal that people who know Stevens say he liked pornography, frequented prostitutes, and once told a friend he'd like to cut up prostitutes and kill them. The documents also show Stevens owned a house in a suburb of Portland, Oregon, close to where the bodies of 4 Green River victims were found. The house had a secret room behind a sliding bookcase. Serena Caruso was a tenant.
You know, he's a weird guy. He had some weird stuff in his house, but that's about all they have.
Do you think he's the Green River Killer?
On Wednesday, police spent 14 hours searching Stevens' own house and that of his parents in Spokane. But in the long and frustrating search for the Green River Killer, police have become more accustomed to finding bodies than finding solid leads. John Blackstone, CBS News, Seattle.
A Delaware judge today rejected Paramount Communications' efforts to block Time Incorporated's $14 billion merger with Warner Communications. Paramount, which made a hostile $12 billion bid for Time, said it would appeal today's ruling to the Delaware Supreme Court. In Washington, the Labor Department today reported that steep drops in energy and food costs pushed wholesale prices down 0.1% in June. That first decline in wholesale prices in 18 months surprised economists who were expecting a moderate increase. But in another report, the government said that retail sales in June showed their first back-to-back drop in almost 2 years. The report said sales fell 0.4% last month, with the biggest decline in auto sales since the October 1987 stock market crash.
The delicious crunch of crackling oat bran has gotten you in trouble again. How do you defend yourself?
Did you eat all the crackling oat bran?
I don't have to answer that.
Did you eat all the crackling oat bran?
Well, you're the one holding the box.
Did you eat all the crackling oat bran?
What crackling oat bran?
With the irresistibly sweet taste of Kellogg's crackling oat bran, an open box is an empty box.
It took 2,000 years, but a revolutionary discovery is changing the way men think about coloring their gray hair. It's called Just for Men, from the leader in men's hair coloring. Simply apply Just for Men, and in 5 minutes, shampoo out. Your gray is blended away, leaving your natural-looking color. 5 minutes. Here, look at me. Just for Men leaves your hair looking healthy and fuller, and it won't fade or wash out. Just for Men, in the men's hair care section.
This business may seem easy, but try doing this with minor arthritis pain. For years I took aspirin, but now there's Advil. It gives me hours of relief, yet it's gentler to my stomach than aspirin. Advil, advanced medicine for pain.
Butterball turkey cold cuts. Any way you slice it, they're delicious. Butterball ham, Butterball bologna, or Butterball smoked turkey breast. They're up to 98% fat-free and all Butterball. So any way you slice it, it's
delicious.
Explosive testimony on Capitol Hill today at a House hearing on the HUD scandal. 2 former HUD officials said Reagan administration Housing Secretary Samuel Pierce was indeed involved in deciding which HUD projects got funded. Pierce has insisted under oath he was not. CBS News Washington correspondent Terrence Smith has our report.
This troubled housing project was repeatedly rejected for federal funds by the staff at the Department of Housing and Urban Development, until the secretary, known as Silent Sam Pierce, spoke up.
But he said, I want the project funded, and I said, I can't fund it, Mr. Secretary. And he said, well, I want it funded.
Testimony today by 2 former HUD officials flatly contradicts earlier sworn statements by Pierce.
I never told any of these people to fund anything.
The 2 officials also challenged Pierce's assertion that funding decisions were made by a committee that included them.
I gave them the responsibility, and they were supposed to work it out.
I did not serve on a committee, and I didn't even know it existed.
What was so special about the Durham project? It was backed by an associate of Pierce's at a New York law firm who later became mayor of Durham.
I never, to the best of my recollection, had any formal discussion with him about this project.
HUD officials objected to the project as wasteful and unwarranted, but when Pierce pushed, more than $10 million in HUD funds was approved.
And I received a piece of paper called a rapid reply that had Secretary Pierce's signature on it.
But did Pierce actually sign the authorizing letter? This cover sheet obtained by CBS News suggests that Pierce aide Deborah Dean okayed the use of an automatic pen to reproduce the secretary's signature. Dean, who took the Fifth Amendment before the committee, is seeking immunity before she agrees to testify about Pierce's role. Pierce will get a chance to answer that question and explain his earlier testimony when he reappears before the committee in a few weeks. Terrence Smith, CBS News, Washington.
The U.S. Senate voted 81-10 today to impose additional sanctions against China. to protest its crackdown on pro-democracy demonstrators. That measure was similar to one passed by the House last month over the objections of President Bush and his aides. Final overall congressional action is not expected until next week. Lech Wałęsa reversed himself today and said he would not object to Communist Party leader Wojciech Jaruzelski becoming president of Poland. Jaruzelski said he would not run last month, but party leaders have been urging him to reconsider. And today, Wałęsa, who leads the Solidarity Union opposition, said a president must be elected without delay, and he will cooperate with whomever is chosen by the Communist Party. Cuba's state-run press today announced the resignation of 6 top officials in the Interior Ministry. This purge is a follow-up to yesterday's executions of 4 top Cuban military leaders convicted of drug dealing. Testimony at their trial showed the Interior Ministry cooperated with international drug traffickers by allowing them to use Cuba as a transfer point for cocaine being smuggled to the United States.
You're about to see what it feels like to have a sinus headache. An invisible force pressing against your nasal passages. A painful pressure building up behind your eyes. And to help take this pressure and pain away, there's new Contact Sinus Formula. Nothing you can buy relieves the pressure and pain better, and it won't make you drowsy. New Contact Sinus Formula. Until there's a cure, there's Contact.
Norman, what's that?
Nothing, honey.
I asked a simple question. Norman, are you eating something?
It's nothing, honey.
He lies like a dog.
Kellogg's Nut and Honey Crunch. Crisp golden flakes glazed with sweet honey and real roasted peanuts.
Irene, what's that you're playing?
Nothing, honey.
2 can play this little game.
Kellogg's Nut and Honey Crunch.
Thank goodness today's Friday. What a week. My boss gave me headaches not 1 day, but 2, so I took aspirin 2 days.
If you take aspirin often, make it tri-buffered Bufferin. 100% aspirin, plus 3 buffers. Bufferin, if you take aspirin more than once a week.
Not this much. Not this much. Just this much. New Advanced Formula Kaopectate works fast to relieve diarrhea and cramps. And it tastes better, too. New Advanced Formula Kaopectate. More than ever, the diarrhea specialist.
To capture some of the behind-the-scenes flavor of this eye-catching Bastille Day bicentennial, CBS News correspondent Bernard Goldberg has been out and around. An American in Paris watching the revolution go by, the money change hands, and how nothing succeeds like excess.
When it comes to doing things up big, the French have always been on the cutting edge, excuse the expression. And now they're throwing themselves the grandest party of the century. And they're doing it in the French tradition, with style and class, and most of all, with great dignity.
This is a typical French funny thing that you can put on your head.
The color of money around here these days is blue, white, and red. Besides the tricolor wigs, they're hawking bicentennial underpants and bicentennial soap and bicentennial musical pins.
Can I see this?
Yes, of course, because you want me to be...
Now I understand why you had a revolution.
The French in 1989 aren't just reenacting the revolution, they're also reassessing it. Did they go too far in the name of liberty and equality? The conventional wisdom 200 years later, yes, they did. So what began in an era of privilege and aristocracy ended in a reign of terror. And nothing was more terrifying than the guillotine, the very symbol of revolutionary excess. And today, 200 years after the revolution, in this summer of '89, once again, the guillotine is something to die for.
So you'd walk around during the bicentennial, or someone might,
Yeah.
wearing guillotines on her ears. That's very nice.
It's guillotine chic. Besides the earrings, there are guillotine keychains and guillotine wine holders and just plain guillotines. Even the barber shops are getting into the act. Bicentennial guillotine heads. And at this Paris restaurant, a bicentennial favorite, head of veal guillotine, complete with tongue and brain.
Pour la Révolution, on sert une tête dans une assiette.
Because for the revolution, you serve a head in a plate.
I've lost my appetite. Their crime was that they were extravagant, decadent. So the peasants stormed the Bastille, freed some prisoners, and the revolution was on, leaving us with that famous line, "Let them eat chocolate."
This is a chocolate Bastille.
When they stormed the Bastille, where did they go?
They just came in by the main door.
They came in the main door?
Yes, and then they crossed the moat, and
they ate all the chocolate?
Yes.
So put on your high-heeled bicentennial shoes and your bicentennial wig. France is throwing a $50 million party. Flamboyant, a fête extraordinaire. Marie Antoinette, Louis XVI, and all the other aristocrats who were beheaded would feel right at home. Bernard Goldberg, CBS News, Paris.
From Celebrating Paris, that's tonight's CBS Evening News. Dan Rather. I'll continue our coverage from here as Bob Schieffer brings you the news tomorrow. Connie Chung on Sunday. See you tomorrow. Good night.
Smells good.
Like a Carolina pine forest. That's Lysol Pine Action. I cleaned this morning. It disinfects and works fast. But the scent lasts for hours.
It's nice, but how'd they get a pine forest in there?
Lysol Pine Action. The clean of pine every time.
Stop tough pet and musty odors in their tracks with Ultra Fresh Love My Carpet. It's more effective than original scent Arm & Hammer. Try Ultra Fresh Love My Carpet.
This awful itch. Won't anything stop it fast?
Lanacaine will. Lanacaine shuts off the itch like a switch, instantly. Look, Benadryl can't. Cordaid can't. Hydrocortisones can't. Only Lanacaine cream actually quiets the itch nerves that cause every itch, instantly, on contact. So for the fastest relief of every itch, get Lanacaine.
Lanacaine does shut off the itch. Like a switch, instantly.
It's incredible. You know, patients come in, they don't even tell me they smoke. It's only after I examine them that I find out they're trying to quit.
Yeah, you know what I tell them? It's an addiction to nicotine. You need treatment. Today we can treat nicotine addiction.
Patients don't know that. They just don't know that.
Well, it's a shame they don't come to us.
Yeah.
See your doctor for help.
Celebrity divorces, who's untying the knot, and why. Get the inside story only on the next Entertainment Tonight.
Tonight at 10:30.
Good evening, I'm Chris Clark. Coming up next at 6.
I'm Tom Gasparoli in West Nashville. Did a Metro public official make a big profit using inside information? That story coming up on Eyewitness News.
And the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development visits Nashville, touring a Southeast success, and celebrate the revolution with a French flavor. Plus, Elvis's head may spin after all. Eyewitness News is next. Join us.
We share the spirit of God.